Welcome to Glass Half Full with Leslie Krongold. She shares her stories, experiences, and knowledge of living and coping with a chronic health condition. Learn about tools and resources and hear inspirational interviews that help you to live a life filled with quality and dignity. With 2 decades of support group leadership, Leslie's ready to help you make lemonade out of life's lemons. Are you ready?
Hello. How you doing? It's been a while. So, for so many reasons, I haven't published a podcast episode in the last few months, but I don't need to go into it. I'm back. Here I am, at least for now. You know how it is, progressive health condition, life gets in the way of living. Oh, that maybe that's a good bumper sticker. Life gets in the way of living. Anyhow, I interviewed a friend from college a while ago. He's still back there in New York, where I went to college. I've been seeing him in about 10 or so years, and he's on Facebook, but we do keep up here and there, email. Some people still do email. Anyhow, we did a Zoom chat, and his name is Ribotsky, and Glenn was my teaching assistant in my Intro to Psychology class. I think that was probably my freshman year, back in 1980. But what I most remember about Glenn from way back when was that he was a total ally, LGBTQ ally, straight ally, before that term ally was used. And when the NYU, New York University organization was called Gay People's Union. There was no LGBTQ. It was just GPU. Anyhow, Glenn marched with me at the annual Pride March down Fifth Avenue. And I know I have photos of that. Hopefully I have found them. And I have posted them on the website before you even hear these words from me. So I would have thought Glenn would be a psychologist or researcher because he was a good TA. It was a wide breadth of content in that class. I remember I had to go like 2 or 3 times a week to classes and lab. But he did pursue graduate work in counseling psychology. And I don't believe he worked as a therapist, but I know for many years he has been a private tutor, for kids with test preparation, things like that. So how we currently intersect, though, is his volunteer and advocacy work with the Western Neuropathy Association, where he is now a board member. We had our Zoom conversation a few months ago, and ironically at that time, I realized the intermittent tingling and knife-like pain I experienced in my feet while horizontal in bed had kicked up a few notches. It was more frequent, more painful, so I was really a captive audience for him. Since we spoke, the pain has increased, and I'd say there are 3 aspects to it, but I need not go into that now. Basically, I still don't have a diagnosis, nor have I had much success with what doctors have suggested I do about it. In March, I was hospitalized at Stanford for a lung infection, and while there, I talked about my feet issues. You want to cover everything when you have the attention of all these specialists and interns and researchers. It's very intense. Anyhow, no diagnosis, but an OT, occupational therapist, gave me a pair of these cushioned boots to wear in bed. Um, they haven't really solved the problem. Since then, I have seen, since March, I've seen a few different specialists and have more diagnostics planned, waiting for an ultrasound on my calves. A cardiologist suggested that. But it's ironic because this road with my feet has had more bumps, twists, and turns than my road to the rare disease diagnosis of myotonic dystrophy. Sometimes, when I sit on an interview for a while, like I can't remember how many months ago I interviewed Glenn, but something happens that makes the episode more prescient. 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 That word popped into my head, and I know it's fairly accurate, but I don't even know if I've ever used it in a sentence. So you, my listener, this is like virgin territory. Anyhow, this personal connection to what is probably neuropathy is what, kicked me in the butt to get this episode going and to get back to work with podcast episodes, because I've got like, 2 or 3 more done and like 4 more, percolating in my head that I'm excited about. So here's Glenn and a conversation about neuropathy. So tell me, how would you define neuropathy, and is it synonymous with peripheral neuropathy?
It's not exactly synonymous, because neuropathy globally is usually defined as any sort of damage or any sort of impingement on nerves. But obviously, there are many kinds of nerves. Peripheral neuropathy is usually thought of damage to nerves that lie outside the brain or spinal cord. A lot of people do use the terms interchangeably, if only because neuropathy is so common and yet so unknown that people just want to get the word out there. But there's definitely a distinction between a neuropathy, say, caused by multiple sclerosis, which is obviously a problem of brain or spinal cord, and one that would be caused by, say, diabetes, which is the most common cause of peripheral neuropathy, although certainly not the only one. The problem, of course, is that either of those and a whole host of other things can produce exactly the same symptoms, and teasing out where the damage is often a very long and very expensive proposition. And none of us, unfortunately, in this world are absolved from being, let's say, multiply morbid, as they like to say. You can have problems with the spinal cord or the brain and with your peripheral nerves simultaneously from different causes. And, that's a real pain, of course, when that happens.
A real pain.
Yeah. I'm actually one of those people. I'm fortunate in that I can actually distinguish, in my case, the symptoms, and I'll talk about why among different types of neuropathy. But I have problems where I have cervical spine impingement on my spinal cord, but I also have peripheral neuropathy. The impingement from the cord, though, tends to create symptoms that are much more localized. Because it's at certain levels of the spine, in my case, from C5 to C7, in terms of that nomenclature, those symptoms are basically neck, backs of shoulders, and down the arms, whereas the more systemic peripheral things are body-wide. Mm-hmm. And the symptoms also are somewhat different. I mean, I get more typical compressive symptoms out of the cervical spine stuff, as opposed to the other small fiber neuropathy I have, and I'll define those terms for people, which is much more of a burning pain.
Let me ask, so when did this start? When did your journey with neuropathy, learning about it, tell me the genesis.
April 12th, 2003, it's that specific.